Let me ask you something. What if today, right now, was the call you've been praying for? What if the breakthrough you've been waiting on didn't come with flashing lights or a voice from heaven, but instead came wrapped in discomfort, resistance, and negative emotions? Let me be real with you. The call is live, not scheduled, not delayed, live, and some of us are missing it. Not because we're not ready, but because we're letting negative feelings hold the phone hostage. You're scrolling through life, feeling anxious, stuck, unseen, frustrated with your progress, confused about your future, and overwhelmed by emotions that feel louder than your calling. But here's the truth: negative feelings are not your identity. They're not your destiny. They're simply signals, signs that it's time to answer a deeper call. This isn't just about motivation. It's about transformation. It's about how to rise when everything in you feels heavy. How to hear God's voice even when your mind is clouded. How to move forward when you feel trapped inside your own emotions. This moment right here, it's divine, it's sacred, and you don't want to miss it. Because the call is live and it's time to pick up. Most people think that negative feelings come to destroy them. They think if they feel fear, sadness, guilt, anger, or shame, it must mean something is wrong with them. That they're broken, that they've failed, but the truth is, awareness is not weakness. Awareness is power. The moment you become aware of your emotions, you gain control over them. You cannot change what you will not confront, and you cannot confront what you're unwilling to acknowledge. We live in a world that teaches us to hide pain, to perform, to smile through the storm, to post the highlight reel while bleeding silently behind the scenes. But let me tell you, denying your emotions doesn't make you strong. It makes you numb, and numb people don't heal. Numb people don't grow. Numb people don't move forward. They stand still and call it surviving. But God didn't put you on this earth to survive. He put you here to thrive, to become, to evolve. And you cannot evolve until you become deeply, unapologetically aware of what's going on inside of you. Some of us are carrying years, maybe decades, of buried emotion, pain from childhood, guilt from past choices, fear from things we can't even name, and we've gotten so used to carrying the weight, we forgot it wasn't supposed to be ours in the first place. We mistake dysfunction for identity. We confuse wounds for personality. But that's not who you are. That's what you're experiencing, and there's a difference. When you become aware of your negative feelings, not to judge them, not to fear them, but to observe them, you begin to shift the narrative. Because awareness creates space, space between you and the feeling. You stop saying, "I am anxious," and start saying, "I feel anxiety." That space, that's where your freedom begins. Because anything you can observe, you can interrupt. And anything you can interrupt, you can transform. Let me take you deeper. Think about it. How many times have you reacted from a place of emotion and then regretted it? Maybe you lashed out, walked away, shut down, gave up. That moment of reaction was not your truth. It was your unconscious programming speaking louder than your purpose. But if you had stopped, paused, and gotten aware, if you had stepped into the role of the observer, not the reactor, you could have seen that feeling for what it really was. A signal, not a sentence. See, feelings aren't final. They're fleeting, but we make them final because we give them power they were never meant to have. You're not supposed to let your emotions drive the car. They can ride with you, sure, but they don't get to take the wheel. You have to know what's going on inside you, or it will run your life without your permission. That's why awareness is not optional. It's necessary. Let's be real. The reason many people avoid emotional awareness is because they're scared of what they might find. Scared of the anger, the grief, the heartbreak. Scared of the truth that maybe they're not okay. But listen, you can't heal what you hide. You can't break free from what you won't face. And here's the thing, your emotions are not your enemy. They're your messengers. Your sadness might be telling you it's time to release. Your anger might be pointing to a boundary that's been crossed. Your fear might be alerting you to a place where trust needs to be built. If you ignore the message, you stay in the loop. But when you listen, when you become aware, you gain the authority to shift. That's where real transformation begins, not in pretending everything's fine. Not in quoting affirmations you don't believe, but in getting still enough to say, something's rising in me and I need to look at it. Not judge it, not suppress it. Just look at it. Awareness is about curiosity, not condemnation. It's about noticing patterns, observing cycles, and asking better questions. Why do I feel this way? When did this start? What am I believing right now? Is it even true? That level of honesty, it's not easy. But it's liberating, because once you get honest with yourself, nobody can manipulate you with your own feelings. Once you become aware, you become untouchable in the areas where you were once vulnerable. People can't use your fear against you when you've already faced it. Circumstances can't paralyze you when you've made peace with your emotions. That's the kind of clarity that changes everything. Some of us are praying for God to change our circumstances, but He's trying to change our awareness. Because if your mind doesn't shift, your situation will only be temporary. You'll break free for a moment but return to the cycle. But when your awareness grows, your standard rises. You start making decisions from truth, not from trauma. You stop chasing peace and start creating it. You stop reacting and start responding. That's the difference between living consciously and living on autopilot. Let me tell you something. Being aware doesn't mean you don't feel the pain. It means you understand it's not permanent. It doesn't mean you don't have dark days. It means you can see through the dark and find the direction. Awareness is what gives you vision when your emotions are trying to blind you. It gives you the ability to pause, to breathe, to reflect, to ask yourself, is this the truth or is this just the trigger? The world around you will keep feeding you distractions, noise, opinions, pressure. But awareness invites you to turn inward and find your center, and when you live from that place, the noise gets quieter, the fear loses its grip. You begin to move from intention, not from impulse. You begin to lead your life instead of being led by your mood. And that shift, that moment of internal clarity, is where the real power lies, because you stop asking, why do I feel this way, like a victim, and you start asking, what is this trying to teach me, like a student of your own soul. You recognize that your feelings are just weather and you are the sky. The storm will pass, but you remain. Your awareness becomes your anchor, your compass, your quiet authority in the midst of chaos. You don't need to suppress the negative emotions. You don't need to run from them, shame them, or fight them. You just need to see them, acknowledge them, breathe with them, and know they are not here to destroy you. They are here to wake you up. They are here to help you rise, and the moment you choose awareness, you step into power, not the kind of power that performs for approval, not the kind of power that hides behind perfection, but the kind of power that comes from within. Quiet, certain, unshakable. Every single thought you think is a seed, and that seed is always producing something. Whether you're conscious of it or not, your thoughts are creating emotions, shaping your beliefs, and forming the blueprint of your life. The trouble is, most people are planting seeds without ever realizing what kind of harvest they're preparing for. You think a thought once, and it doesn't seem like much. But that thought repeats, and then it begins to take root. That root gives birth to a feeling, and that feeling starts shaping your decisions. Those decisions become actions, and before you know it, you've built an entire life around a belief that was never even yours to begin with. The power of your mind isn't just in what it knows, it's in what it allows, what you allow yourself to dwell on, to believe, to feed. Those things don't stay thoughts, they become your experience. If you constantly think, I'm not good enough, that thought doesn't just sit there. It produces a feeling of inadequacy. That feeling becomes hesitation. Hesitation becomes inaction. Inaction becomes regret. And regret becomes a pattern that repeats itself again and again until you start to question your entire purpose. But what if you could catch that thought before it takes root? What if you could examine it, question it, interrupt it before it becomes a stronghold in your life? That's where the transformation starts. When you realize you're not a prisoner to your thoughts, you are the gatekeeper. You don't have to accept every thought that passes through your mind. You don't have to nurture every lie that your pain speaks. Just because a thought shows up doesn't mean it deserves to stay. You get to decide what thoughts get watered, what thoughts get pulled out, and what thoughts get planted with intention. The problem is most of us weren't taught how to guard our mental garden. We weren't taught how to be intentional with our internal language. We repeat the voices we heard growing up, the criticisms, the doubts, the fears, and we think they're our truth, but they're not. They're old echoes that became patterns, and those patterns are producing emotions we don't even understand. We walk around feeling defeated, anxious, angry, or numb, and we can't trace it back because we've normalized the thought patterns that created those feelings. You have to understand, your mind is the soil and your thoughts are the seeds, and the soil doesn't care what kind of seed you plant. It will grow whatever you give it. If you plant bitterness, you will feel bitterness. If you plant fear, you will feel fear. If you plant shame, you will feel stuck. But if you start planting love, hope, gratitude, clarity, faith, your emotions begin to follow that direction. This is not magic. It's awareness, it's strategy, it's spiritual discipline. You cannot overcome negative emotions if you're constantly feeding them with negative thoughts. You cannot build a life of peace with a mind full of chaos. Some of the most powerful changes in your emotional state will come not from changing your circumstances, but from changing your internal script. When you stop repeating, "I'm not worthy," and start replacing it with, "I'm growing into who I was always meant to be," something inside of you shifts. Not instantly, not dramatically, but slowly, consistently. Seeds don't sprout overnight, but they do grow if you keep feeding them, and feeding doesn't just happen through thinking. It happens through what you expose yourself to. Who you listen to, what you watch, what you speak out loud. Your words are water. Every time you say something, you're watering the seeds in your mind. If you say, "I'll never get out of this," you're watering despair. If you say, "This is hard, but I'm not giving up," you're watering resilience, and over time, what you water becomes what you see. If you're serious about changing the way you feel, you have to get serious about changing what you say and what you think. The truth is, most of your negative feelings are not rooted in the present moment. They are echoes of thoughts you've repeated for years. They are rooted in the past, in old fear, in outdated stories that you've never questioned. You've told yourself, "I always mess up," so now you feel discouraged even before you try. You've told yourself, "No one really sees me," so now you feel isolated in rooms where people are actually willing to love you. You've told yourself, "I'm not strong enough," so now you feel weak in situations that are actually stretching you to grow, but those aren't facts, they're scripts, and just because a script has been rehearsed doesn't mean it's real. You have the power to rewrite your mental narrative. You have the ability to choose what thoughts deserve your attention and which ones don't. You don't have to entertain every fear. You don't have to rehearse every disappointment. You don't have to meditate on every worst-case scenario. You can say, "No, I'm not watering that today." You can say, "That thought isn't bearing good fruit, so it's not staying." You can say, "I'm choosing thoughts that support my healing, not my sabotage." And don't think this is about fake positivity. This isn't about denying reality. This is about choosing to think in alignment with truth, with purpose, with power. You can acknowledge pain without worshiping it. You can feel fear without bowing to it. You can admit weakness while still declaring growth. The goal isn't to never think a negative thought. The goal is to become so aware, so intentional, that those thoughts no longer run the show. You'll begin to notice that as your thoughts shift, your feelings will shift too. That pit in your stomach will loosen. That tightness in your chest will ease. That cloud over your mind will begin to lift. Not because your life got easier, but because your mind got clearer, because you stopped planting weeds and started planting truth, because you realized that your emotions are not disconnected from your thoughts, they are the result of them. It's time to stop living as if you're at the mercy of your emotions. It's time to stop reacting to every feeling like it's law. Your emotions are valid, but they are not always accurate. They're based on what you've been thinking, rehearsing, replaying. So if you want new emotions, plant new seeds, choose new thoughts, it might feel unnatural at first, but just like anything else, it becomes familiar with repetition. Speak what you want to feel, think in alignment with your purpose. Water the future you're growing into, not the past you're trying to escape, because your mind is always growing something. The only question is, what harvest are you preparing for? Emotion is not your enemy. Emotion is energy in motion. It is not meant to stay stuck inside of you, buried under forced smiles, masked behind religious language, or hidden beneath productivity. It's meant to move. It's meant to pass through. It's meant to inform you, not define you. The problem is we were never taught what to do with our emotions. Most of us were told to calm down, get over it, be strong, or pray it away. And so we learned how to suppress. We learned how to shut down our truth so we could be accepted. We learned how to perform while we were breaking. We became masters of emotional silence, not emotional strength. And now we're emotionally full but spiritually empty, walking around carrying energy we never released. When you suppress an emotion, you don't destroy it. You simply store it. It doesn't vanish. It waits. It waits in your body. It waits in your nervous system. It waits in your breath, in your posture, in your tone of voice. And then one day, without warning, it bursts out, not as wisdom, but as a reaction. That's why some people lash out at the smallest inconvenience. That's why some break down over something that seems minor. It's not the moment they're reacting to, it's the years of suppressed energy finally breaking free. It's the buildup of emotions that were never allowed to move, because energy always demands movement. What you suppress eventually expresses, and rarely in a way that's healthy. You don't need to fear your emotions, you need to feel them. You need to learn how to channel that energy, not choke it down. When you feel anger, that's a sign that something inside you has been violated or ignored. Anger is a messenger. If you silence it, you miss the message. If you harness it, you can use it to set boundaries, to speak up, to advocate for yourself, to demand change. That energy is not evil, it's just misdirected. And misdirected energy is what leads to emotional explosions and deep internal conflict. When you learn how to channel that energy with clarity and discipline, you're no longer controlled by your emotions. You are guided by them. Sadness is another powerful current, but many of us treat sadness like a weakness. We apologize for crying. We hide our tears. We act like if we show grief, we've lost our faith. But grief is not the absence of faith. It's the evidence of love. Sadness is a sacred emotion. It doesn't make you broken. It makes you alive. It means you felt something deeply. It means something mattered. And when you allow yourself to feel that sadness fully, to let it move through your body, to let the tears flow, to let the silence speak, you give your spirit the space to heal. Suppressing it only extends the pain. Feeling it allows release. Fear is another emotion that holds immense energy. It tightens your chest, quickens your heartbeat, freezes your movement. But fear isn't always wrong. It's a warning signal. Sometimes it's telling you to be careful, but other times it's telling you to grow. It's telling you that you're stepping outside your comfort zone, that you're doing something unfamiliar, that you're walking into new territory. And instead of letting that fear paralyze you, you can let it fuel you. You can let that energy push you forward instead of holding you back. Fear loses its grip when you stop avoiding it and start moving with it. Joy is energy too. But some of us have learned how to suppress joy just like we suppress pain. We're afraid to be too happy. We're afraid to celebrate. We're afraid to rest in peace because we're always waiting for something to go wrong. That's emotional trauma, always anticipating the crash, so you never let yourself enjoy the ride. But joy is not dangerous. Joy is healing. Joy is your inheritance. And when you allow yourself to fully feel the energy of joy, to laugh from your belly, to dance without shame, to live fully present, you start rewiring your nervous system to believe that safety and peace are possible. You start training your body to believe that good is not temporary, it's natural. Your body holds on to every emotional experience you've ever had. It stores tension. It stores heartbreak. It stores excitement. That's why movement is so important. That's why creativity, prayer, breathwork, journaling, music, these aren't just hobbies, they're release valves. They're ways to channel energy. They're ways to move emotion out of stagnation and into transformation. Because energy that stays stuck becomes pain, but energy that moves becomes power. Many people think that emotional healing means always being calm, always having it together. But true emotional healing means knowing how to move through your emotions without letting them define you. It means giving yourself permission to feel without falling apart. It means learning the language of your inner world so you don't become a stranger to yourself. When you know what you're feeling and why you're feeling it, you gain emotional intelligence. And emotional intelligence is not a trend, it's a survival skill. It's what allows you to lead, to love, to grow, and to make decisions rooted in truth instead of trauma. There's nothing wrong with you because you feel deeply. There's nothing weak about needing space to cry, to be quiet, to scream into a pillow, or to sit still until the storm passes. That's not failure, that's processing, that's honoring the energy within you. That's choosing movement over suppression, and that's strength, because real strength is not emotional avoidance. Real strength is emotional honesty. Real strength is being able to say, this hurts, and still move forward. To say, I'm afraid, and still show up. To say, I'm overwhelmed, and still open your heart. You are not emotionally unstable because you feel things strongly. You are not spiritually immature because you haven't figured out how to silence your emotions. Your emotions are not meant to be silenced. They are meant to be stewarded. You're called to lead them, to direct them, to hold space for them without letting them drive you off the road. That's what mastery looks like. Not control in the sense of suppression, but wisdom in the sense of guidance. That's what it means to channel emotion, to give energy a direction, to feel the wave without drowning in it, to ride the storm without losing your identity. So many of the emotional battles we fight are not because we're too sensitive, but because we've been too silent. We've been too disconnected from the energy we're carrying. We've ignored our bodies. We've numbed ourselves with distractions. We've spiritualized dysfunction, and now we wonder why we feel stuck. But healing comes when you pause, when you breathe, when you listen to what your emotions are trying to say. When you stop running and start releasing, when you stop suppressing and start moving, that's where clarity is born, in movement, in expression, in allowing the energy within you to pass through instead of weigh you down. That's where peace comes, not from avoidance but from alignment, not from numbing but from knowing, not from silencing your feelings but from channeling them into purpose, into growth, into presence, into power. There comes a point in your journey when you have to stop seeing your negative feelings as evidence that something is wrong with you and start seeing them as proof that something is waking up inside of you. So many people walk around thinking that if they feel sad, they're weak. If they feel anxious, they're broken. If they feel angry, they've failed. But emotions are not signs that you're falling apart. More often than not, they're signs that you're coming alive, that you're becoming, that something old is breaking so something new can begin. You're not broken. You're breaking open. You're not lost. You're shedding layers that no longer fit where you're going. Growth is uncomfortable. Transformation is messy. And becoming more of who you truly are will always require letting go of who you used to be. The emotional turmoil you feel is not the end, it's the middle. It's the sacred space between the version of you that was surviving and the version of you that is about to thrive. That tension you feel, that's the stretching of your soul. That's the growing pains of evolution. We live in a world that glorifies perfection and punishes vulnerability. But real transformation doesn't happen in the spotlight. It happens in the dark, in the silence, in the nights when you cry and no one sees you. In the mornings when you get up even though everything in you says stay down. In the moments when your heart feels heavy, but you keep moving. That is not weakness, that is strength, that is resilience. That is becoming, and every time you face those emotions with honesty instead of shame, you reclaim a piece of yourself. You're not meant to be the same person you were last year, last season, or even last week. The purpose of life is not to remain unchanged. It's to become more aware, more alive, more connected to who you really are beneath the fear, beneath the conditioning, beneath the expectations that were placed on you. And in order to do that, you will feel deeply. You will feel confused, overwhelmed, raw. But that doesn't mean you're doing it wrong. That means you're doing it right. That means something is shifting. That means you are shedding. Sometimes the pain you're experiencing isn't punishment. It's purification. It's God stripping away everything that's no longer aligned with your calling, everything you thought you needed. Everything you built on fear, everything you accepted out of insecurity, it has to go because you can't carry that weight into the next dimension of your life. The feelings that come up during this process are not just emotions, they are revelations. They're exposing what needs to be healed, what needs to be released, what needs to be transformed. And if you can stop resisting the process and start trusting the purpose, you will see that your negative feelings are not the enemy, they're the invitation. They're inviting you to pause, to reflect, to realign, to ask questions you've been avoiding, to sit in silence long enough to hear the voice inside you that's been drowned out by noise. To reconnect with the version of yourself that is deeper than the performance, deeper than the pain, deeper than the fear. That version of you is not fragile. That version of you is not confused. That version of you is grounded, powerful, aware. But to access her, you have to be willing to walk through the discomfort. You have to be willing to sit with yourself, not to fix everything, but to be with everything. You are not the pain you've experienced. You are the person rising from it. You are not your breakdown. You are your breakthrough in progress. You are not what happened to you. You are what's happening through you, and that shift in perspective is everything. Because when you stop identifying with your struggle, you create space for healing. When you stop labeling yourself as damaged, you begin to recognize yourself as developing. And that recognition is what changes the game. That is what shifts the energy. That is what begins to pull you out of the cycle. The truth is, you've already survived things that were meant to destroy you. You've already come through storms that tried to bury you. And here you are still breathing, still moving, still growing. So don't let a wave of emotion convince you that you're drowning. You are learning how to swim in deeper waters. You are learning how to carry yourself through emotional tides that used to knock you down. You are learning how to feel without falling apart, and that kind of growth cannot be rushed. It can only be honored. Sometimes what you feel is the residue of an old identity that's trying to hold on. Sometimes it's the echo of a voice you've outgrown. Sometimes it's the grief of letting go of what once made you feel safe, and that's okay. Feel it, honor it, release it, because what's coming is bigger than what's leaving. What you're becoming is more powerful than what you've been, and the only way to step into that new version is to allow the old version to fall away. This isn't about pretending you're okay. This is about recognizing that being in the middle of becoming is okay. It's about understanding that emotional discomfort is not a sign of failure. It's a sign of forward motion. The caterpillar doesn't become a butterfly without going through the cocoon. The seed doesn't break into bloom without first cracking open underground. And you will not become all that you are called to be without confronting the places inside of you that are still holding on to fear, doubt, guilt, and shame. But hear this, every time you feel like you're unraveling, you're actually being rewoven. Every time you feel like you're falling apart, a deeper part of you is coming together. Every time you feel like you're not enough, a truer understanding of your worth is being born. So don't run from those feelings. Don't numb them, don't suppress them, let them teach you, let them guide you, let them show you where you still need healing, where you still need truth, where you still need grace. Your emotional pain is not here to shame you. It's here to shape you. It's here to grow you. It's here to remind you that you are alive, that you care, that you are being stretched into something greater. And sometimes the only way to become her, the healed, free, whole version of you, is to walk through what hurts with courage and clarity. To meet yourself where you are, to honor the feelings as messengers, not masters, to allow the breaking to become the building. To trust that in the becoming, every emotion is part of the construction of your new foundation. There is a call on your life that's louder than your fear, deeper than your insecurity, and stronger than your current situation. It doesn't show up as a text message or a phone notification. It shows up in the silent, sacred moments when everything around you feels overwhelming, but something within you refuses to quit. That call isn't coming from the outside. It's already ringing on the inside. And you know it. That tug, that discomfort, that voice that keeps whispering, there's more. That's your calling trying to get your attention. And the truth is, most people miss the call not because they are unwilling, but because they let temporary emotions talk them out of eternal purpose. When emotions rise, they speak loud. Fear screams, doubt whispers constantly. Shame keeps rerunning old stories, and in the middle of all that noise, the call doesn't always sound like a confident command. It sounds like a quiet pull. It sounds like an ache for something greater. It sounds like a vision that scares you because it requires more from you. But if you only listen to what you feel in the moment, you'll miss what you're here to do for a lifetime. Feelings are real, but they're not the final authority. They change, they evolve, they rise and fall, but the call remains. There is a version of you that your calling is trying to wake up. Not the version that people applaud, not the version that plays it safe, not the version that hides behind perfectionism, procrastination, or self-doubt. The version of you that's bold, the version that doesn't need approval to move. The version that remembers who she is, even when she feels afraid. And every time you answer the call even a little, that version grows stronger. The calling on your life doesn't wait until you feel ready. It doesn't wait until you've healed everything or figured everything out. It meets you in the middle of your confusion, your brokenness, your mess. The call says, "Come as you are, I'll handle the rest." But you've got to be willing to answer it. You've got to stop letting feelings of unworthiness, shame, or uncertainty talk you into staying where God is calling you to move from. It doesn't matter if you feel small. What matters is that you respond. Sometimes answering the call looks like showing up when you feel invisible. Sometimes it looks like speaking when you'd rather stay silent. Sometimes it means forgiving when the pain is still fresh. Sometimes it means trusting when all you've known is betrayal. And sometimes it simply means getting up one more time when everything in you says stay down. These are not small acts. They are sacred. They are the building blocks of a life led by purpose instead of by feeling. We often wait for perfect emotional conditions before we move, waiting to feel inspired, waiting to feel strong, waiting to feel confident. But the truth is, your calling is not emotional, it's spiritual. It comes from a deeper place than feeling. It comes from identity, from alignment, from the whisper of God reminding you that your life has meaning even in the moments that feel meaningless. If you only move when you feel good, you'll miss the seasons that are actually molding you into the person you're praying to become. And here's the thing, your emotions don't disqualify you. Your fear doesn't disqualify you. Your history doesn't disqualify you. The only thing that can disqualify you is your refusal to pick up the call, because the call doesn't require perfection. It requires response. It requires faith. Not faith that you'll never feel doubt, but faith that you'll keep moving even when doubt is loud. Not faith that you'll never cry, but faith that you'll rise through the tears. Not faith that you'll always know what to do, but faith that you're still chosen even when you don't know the next step. Some of the greatest assignments are birthed out of the places you've tried to hide. The pain you carry, the shame you bury, the battle you barely survived. Those are not obstacles to your calling. They are often the very fuel of it. They become your story, your wisdom, your authority, but only if you answer, only if you trust that your life is not just about what you feel, but about what you're called to build. You've got to understand that not everyone will hear your call. And that's okay. Not everyone will understand why you're shifting, why you're separating yourself from certain people, why you're saying no to distractions, why you're guarding your peace so fiercely. They don't have to understand, because the call didn't go to them. It went to you, and when you answer, you won't need their validation. You'll have your own confirmation. You'll begin to walk with a different kind of knowing, not a knowing of logic, but a knowing of alignment. Every time you say yes to your calling, you silence the voices that told you couldn't. You disrupt the generational patterns that tried to repeat through you. You interrupt the narrative that says you have to feel ready before you act. You stop living by reaction and start living by revelation. And revelation doesn't ask how you feel, it reminds you of who you are, who you've always been beneath the layers of insecurity, fear, and hesitation. Your calling is not just about you. It's about what flows through you. It's about the people you're meant to impact, the lives you're meant to touch, the light you're meant to bring. And when you don't answer, someone else misses out. When you stay silent, someone else stays stuck. When you shrink, someone else doesn't get permission to grow. That's how powerful your yes is. It's not just for you, it's for generations, but you can't give what you haven't received. So you have to receive the call first. You have to pick it up, even if your hands are trembling, even if your voice shakes, even if your past tries to pull you back. You have to lean in. You have to say, I'm not where I want to be, but I'm still going. I don't have all the answers, but I won't stay silent. I'm scared, but I'm showing up anyway. Because purpose is louder than pain, destiny is deeper than doubt, and the call doesn't wait for your permission. It waits for your participation. It's already ringing. The question is not, am I worthy? The question is, will I answer? Will you rise above your emotions, not by denying them, but by deciding that they don't get the final say? Will you trust that even in your brokenness, you are still anointed? That even in your uncertainty, you are still called. There's a version of you waiting on the other side of this emotional storm. A version that is bolder, clearer, freer. But she can't come forward unless you move. Unless you respond, unless you pick up the call and say yes. Not to comfort, but to calling. Not to familiarity, but to freedom. Not to how you feel in the moment, but to who you're becoming in the process. The call is not passive. It's not background noise. It's present, it's pressing, and it's personal.